back to this. Yep. Okay, so the most common array list, list that you'll be using is array list. I think we're gonna get into that in a second. Oh, so there's a whole discussion. Interfaces are like contracts. Whole discussion on what an interface is, and this is helpful to read if you just need to like hear the words again. It's pretty good. List methods on the exam. Okay, so this is like really important because as we saw here, there are like quite a few methods. And you don't need all of them. So the ones you do need to know are size, add with 2 parameters, get, set, and remove.
Okay.
So most of these are self-explanatory. Size will return the number of elements in your list. Add, and then given an object, will add that object to the end of the list. And it returns true once it adds it. Add with an index, an int index, and then an object will add it to that spot in the list. So if I have something like 3, 4, 5, 6, and I said I wanted to, I had a like list.add. First it's index and then the object. So I would say if I wanted to put a 7 right here, I would say 0, 1, 2, 2, comma, new integer 7. And then my list would then look like 3, 4, 7, 5, 6.
So so the first object is the placement, right?
Yes, exactly. The index you're adding, yeah.
Okay, so it adds 7 in the placement 2, and then it shifts 5 and 6 one more automatically.
And that's something that you wouldn't be able to do in an array.
Okay,
right?
got it, because you can't change the size.
Exactly, because if I had, so in an array example, this was my list, and I had an array, and I wanted to set 2 to be 7, right? What would this look like now?
3, 4, 7, 6?
Yeah, exactly. And that is clearly different from this because arrays don't have dynamic resizing, only list 2.
Okay, and so 2 quick questions. So when we set the array 2 equal to 7, does that mean the 5 is automatically deleted, or it creates another array where it's 3, 4, 7, 6?
Nope, it's deleted, and not that it's deleted, it's just replaced completely. So you completely lose track of that 5.
Okay, got it. So it's not like it makes another copy of the array and sets this new array to 3, 4, 7, 6.
No, that would be ridiculous.
Okay, and then the second question was, why didn't you just add, like for the top one, for the array list, why didn't you just add list.add parentheses 2 dot comma 7? Why is it that you needed to put new integer 7? Isn't it assumed, since you put int nums at the top, that the number you're going to put is an int?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it knows that it's going to be, so the key is there actually in the way you asked it. So it needs to add an integer, not an int. So in order to ensure that the compiler knows you're adding an integer and not int 7, right? You need to say that it's an object, new integer. I'm pretty sure it's actually something like this. My syntax is wrong. You need to create an object, an integer object with the int 7, right?
Oh, because we're in an array list, and a list can only have objects at this point, not primitives, right?
Exactly.
So that means that this is like the main method. Like, let's assume this class is running under the main method. That means that there needs to be an integer class somewhere else in the program for it to be able to pull from that, correct? Or is it already built in, like the integer class built inside Java?
There is an integer class in Java.
So we don't have to have a separate class. We could just call new integer and the Java will understand, right?
Because, let's see, it's part of java.lang, and java.lang is automatically imported.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Cool, awesome. So going back here, so we just looked at the add that takes 2 parameters, right?
Yeah.
So it moves everything, it shifts things to the right, and then inserts the object.
Hang on, why is there a void add?
Yeah.
We put void on our thing.
Let's actually look here. So we have add, and we have add, and we have, so we have 2 add methods, right? The first one is like, hey, add this to the end, and if it works, I get true, and if it doesn't, I get false. That's the Boolean. This add will always return, or will actually never return anything. Why do you think that is?
So maybe that the programmer doesn't want it to be returned and just stored.
Okay, that's fair. But it's not actually, like, the other one is not actually returning the value that you added, it's just returning, like, yes or no, it worked.
Okay.
So let's look at this other, where did it go? Oh, maybe it's.
So do we ever use the void, technically?
So void just means that, like, you just don't know, like, it doesn't tell you anything. So why might that be? Why might you not need to know anything about this specific add method? There's no, like, right answer, I'm just asking.
No, so like, okay, if I understand it properly, if we just put the Boolean add like we did before, it's going to give us like for example, we added 7, it's going to give us 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, right? But if we put list.void add to new integer 7, is it still going to like are you asking me like, question is it still returns 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, or it doesn't?
Okay, so I think that there is your answer. So if I wanted to, so say I have this same example, right? Except instead of giving this, I'm just going to give the new integer to add, and instead of putting it index 2, just add it to the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this method add here returns a Boolean. So I can do something like Boolean did it work equals list add, and then I can, system.out.println did it work,
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Okay, cool. Down here, this add method doesn't return anything. So that's what void means. So there's nothing I can do over on this side to say it doesn't return an int, it doesn't return a Boolean, it doesn't return an object, right? It returns absolutely nothing. So
it just sets the value in.
It just sets the value. So don't get confused with what the method is returning versus what the work it's doing and changing the array. So in both of these situations, the array is changed appropriately, right? Either added to the end or either inserted at index 2. So that happens no matter what. But the return value is saying, like, what does it actually return? So it returns a Boolean like, hey, did this work? This returns nothing for whatever reason.
In what situation will the Boolean not work in line 7? If the method asks the array list to add it, it won't just add it and say yes always, unless we make a mistake?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I'm trying to think. Maybe if it's too big, you might come up across that issue. Like if your array list is like way too massive.
2 to 31, something that beyond the capacity of an object can hold.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like really big, so that should never happen to you. Or you could even say something like, oh, what if my list is actually a bunch of doubles, like capital D-O-U-B-L-E? Then I try to add a new integer and it'll be like false, didn't work, I wasn't able to do it.
Wait, so you can't add ints inside, with doubles?
Nope. So how do you, well, I don't expect you to know, but how do you actually create a list? So I'm just going to type this out for now. Integer list equals new array list. Okay. And sometimes you can add this in here. So this is how you declare a list. So So the first part is the name of the type of list, so the list class that you're using. These little brackets are like what type of object you're holding within the list. This is the name of your list, and in this case we called it list. Equals new, because you're creating a new object, so you're saying new, and then you call the constructor for the array list holding an integer.
All the or value spots of that an obs integer.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, I'm pretty sure, okay, don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure that the list,
Correct.
right after this, like the list right now, looks something like this. It's just an empty list. And to keep the brackets the same, we'll do that, if that makes sense. Down here, then I can say something like, okay, now I want to add something. So I'm going to add new integer 3, right? And then do this. If I wanted to add.
Sorry, quick question. I don't know whether like I didn't hear you for the past 1 minute. So the array list there's because we classified integer next to array list here, right?
Sorry, what was your question?
Array list and then like integer. This Java that placeholder can only hold an integer in this, otherwise it's going to throw an out of bounds exception.
Not an out of bounds exception, but it'll be a class exception.
Wow.
So we can actually see this compile, and you want to test it out?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So let me just make sure everything is good. I'm going to delete this example because we never actually initialize that array. And this also, remove that. And then at the very end, let's print out the array. Print out list dot, we're going to see if it has a toString. I'm not really sure. Okay. Array cannot find symbol location array list. Huh? That's weird. Array list integer. Do I have to do like import Java?
Maybe just use like an online Java compiler instead of this.
Ooh, what's that?
Or I'm pretty sure you can just use it.
Let's keep going through here. So oh yeah, you have to include an import statement.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why we're getting that error. So we don't have to import integer like we talked about earlier, but we do need to import list and array list.
Okay. So here for the array list, when you say add list.add new integer 3, 4, 5, 6, the order of them matter, right? If I had put list.add new integer 6 first, it would come out as 6, 3, 4, 5 because it's going by left to right placeholder, right?
Yep. And why is that?
Because it's starting at the place value of 0 and filling it up.
And add to the beginning of the list or the end of the list?
It's adding to the end of the list.
Right, exactly. So because it's adding to the end of the list, if you did, yeah, if you tried to add, if you did it in the order of 6543, you would get 6543.
Got it.
So if we step through this code, let me make it bigger so you can see. Oops, sorry, back. So we're going to start. So we have this list now, right? And it's pointing to instance. Remember how I showed you here that it's basically like an object pointing to nothing?
Yes.
So that's what they're showing right here. And now step forward, right? I'm adding things to my list.
Yes.
Right? Now he's going to add 7.
Okay.
And I return true or false if it worked or not. So did it work has now a value of true because it returned true.
Yes.
Now we're going to print did it work? And it prints true, so that's cool.
Mhm.
So now we know that internally this is what our list looks like. This is what the object is pointing to. And so we're going to add to index 2 a new integer 7. So we think this is what it's going to look like, right?
Wait, hang on. When we had the list equal to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, how did you go to 3, 4, 5, 6 on line 21?
3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, you're right. So what will it actually look like?
It should be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
Yep. So then what will line 23 actually look like?
It will be 3, 4, 7, 5, 6. No, hang on. Yeah, 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see what happens. 3, 4, 7, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Nice job. So,
So the list dot toString means it prints out the entire string, right?
so toString is a method that is defined for many classes in Java.
Yeah.
So if I call an object.toString, it automatically converts that object into string format, and then you can just print out that string format.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
you can't. And why is that? Why does it have to convert to string to print it?
because you can only print strings to the console. If
Are you
we go
serious?
back,
We can't print anything.
well, ints are considered like strings, right? Ints are converted to strings when you print to the console. So say like I just removed the toString, right? Now what I'm asking it to do is to print an object. And an object is really just like a hash code that points to something. So let's just see what it says.
But if I just put system.out.println 3, it's gonna print 3.
Oh, it still works because it's smart.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Because it's what?
what did you say?
Wait, sorry. Why is it still working?
It still works because this is like defined by Java, right? So it's like an internal class. But if you were to define your own thing, it would not work. It would print out like the hash code object that you like created.
Yeah, if you did this on your home computer, it would print something else, but we're using this handy website. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so, but if I put system.out.println just 3, plain old 3, it should still print 3 without me having to convert it into string, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But the compiler will do that for you. That's not something you have to worry about. So like,
Okay.
yeah, your example, right? If I just want to print out like 1, right?
Mhm.
Last. It prints out 1 just fine. You don't have to do 1.toString because it's a primitive type and it knows how to convert all primitive types to strings. So that's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we just talked a lot about this. So let's see. Which of the following is true about import statements? Do you want to answer this multiple choice question?
Yeah. Let me try. You can only have one import statement in a source file. No, you must specify the class to import. Import statements must be before other code in a Java source file. You must import java.lang.string to use the short name of string. I'm guessing between B or C, but I'm leaning more towards B because I know you can put import statements in the middle, I think.
Okay. Let's see. That is incorrect. So you can use star to import all classes. So this is that example.
Oh, okay. So try C then.
Okay, why is C correct?
Is it that you have to put it at the top because once your program, for Java to compile and run your program, it needs to read that first in order to, I guess, do all the other functionalities the later code tells it to do, depending on that import.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it needs to see that, oh, I need to use these tools, and so then it goes and brings the tools to wherever you are, and then it can start working on your code.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Moving right along. Okay, next section, declaring lists. Okay, so we kind of covered this a little bit already, but we'll get into it. So here we have an import. We have our class test. We have a main method, and we're defining a list of strings, and then we're printing out the list. Cool. So right now we printed out lists, it points to nothing, so it's null. Now what would I do if I wanted to make this point to a array list of strings?
Wait, so first, like, this is a list. This is not an array list, right? As of now, what we're seeing.
Yeah, so this is actually a really, really good point. So on the left side, have you heard of compile type versus run type?
No. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know enough of it.
Okay, so just compile. Oops. Why does it do that? Okay, and then down here is going to be runtime. So, you know when you get compile errors, that is Java telling you that the left side of your declaration or your initialization is wonky. It doesn't work. You know, it's incorrect, or you made a mistake in spelling it. Like if I typed list with 2 T's, you would get a compile time error being like, that's not a valid thing.
Okay.
Runtime type is basically saying like, if I were to actually call the method that is on the right side of this equal sign, that is not valid. So in our example here, a good runtime type error would be here if I said something like array list of integer list, that's all fine. Like Java's like, sure, whatever, equals new array list double. If I wrote that, that would be a runtime type error because Java wouldn't realize, like they wouldn't catch that until it got to like runtime and it saw and tried to call a double array list and shove it into this object, which was only supposed to hold an integer array list.
Okay.
Okay. So that's like a really, really big concept, but we'll go over it again.
So is it always holds true that, at least generally, that the left side of the equal sign, or what we're declaring, is going to be compile side?
Yes.
Right
Exactly.
side is going to be runtime.
Yeah, exactly. That's like literally the definition. So compile time is like the left side of your equal sign. The runtime type is the right side. So if we scroll down, you can see that this is the example that we just saw, right? We have list, name list equals null. Down here, we are setting name list equal to a new array list of strings, okay? So
Now it's no longer null. We're setting that name list. We're giving, well, actually, so you're setting it equal to null in line 6. Then you're calling that list and saying that is equal to new array list string. So basically you're inside of it. So how is that possible?
yeah. So basically, I'm just gonna end my screen share for a second. That's how you present. Okay, hello. So in that first example, when we set name list equal to null, we're basically doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, it points. The second time we say name list equals array of strings, array list of strings, right? We say that it points to. So this is an object, which then points, like the object points to nothing, like that.
So and you're creating an object that equals name list that also points to nothing, which is null.
But see, it points to something. That's the distinction. So in this case, it's pointing to null. Like there's literally no object. Here it's pointing to an object, and this object has a list.
But that list is empty as of now.
That list is empty. Empty and null are two separate things.
Okay, so null just means it's pointing to nothing.
Yes.
But list means, this means it's pointing to something if that something doesn't have anything inside it.
Exactly. So think of it like,
okay, thanks.
Think of it like if you have a trash can in a room, a null trash can would be like, there is no trash can. An empty trash can is, there is a trash can, just there's no trash in it.
Okay.
It's two separate things. So now if and at this point, at namelist equaling null, I can't even like trash can dot pickup. I can't even do that, right? Because there is no trash can. But if I have nameless it's empty, I can at least pick up the trash can and maybe add something to it and throw something away. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The other thing I wanted to say was there you can say something like this: list string. The name list is what they called it, right? Equals new array list. So remember that thing I said about compile time and runtime?
Yes.
So if you have something like this, list is an interface. Remember we talked about how it's not actually a class. So you can an object of list type.
Okay.
What this means
Wait,
is
you can create an object of list?
you cannot. You cannot.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
This is compile time, right? I'm gonna write that. This is compile time. This is runtime. So at compile time, Java's like, yeah, you can have an object that is of type of is of a type class that implements the list interface, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So I could have, like, you know how we were saying earlier, like you could have a Lavanya list and you're like saying like, oh, I'm gonna create an object that implements the list interface. That's what this says. The right side, however, is like, okay, and that list is going to be specifically the Lavanya list, or in this case, array list, and I'm calling it the constructor, which is really important to know. You're literally calling the method that creates this object and saying like new.
Or does this have to be only one method or methods?
It's one method. If you go to the Java API, there is a method for every type of list, right? Array list, hash list, and it has a constructor method, and you're creating an object using that constructor method when you do this assignment.
So basically, the parentheses and the semicolon, a constructor's function is to create an object specific to each class.
Mm-hmm. So remember how earlier I said like new integer 7?
Yeah.
So I was actually saying something like this, right? New integer. I was actually calling the new integer constructor. And if you look on Java's like API or whatever, it actually, that constructor takes an int. So that's why I passed a 7 parameter.
Okay, so the new integer itself is a constructor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, integer, like this method titled integer with takes a parameter that, and that method is a constructor. Yeah. New is just
integer is the parameter, and that parameter is the constructor.
This method integer
sorry, what I could not hear.
The new integer, like this method integer, is the constructor.
Got it. So in this array list string, what would be the constructor? Just the parentheses?
No. So the constructor is the type of method. So this entire call, right?
Thing is a constructor. Got it.
String parentheses is you calling the array list constructor method.
Okay, so anything basically when we do new dash something, when we're creating an object, we're actually calling for the constructor specific for that, the constructor method specific to create that object in the class.
Exactly, and that is your runtime type, because Java doesn't really care what kind of array list you're making or what kind of list you're going to call.
Yeah.
Until runtime, until it actually has to call that method and create that list, then it'll tell you if something's wrong. But up until then, like when you first compile your code, it's like, hey, yeah, you can do that. You can make a list, sure. But it doesn't actually check what you are like initializing it to.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So back to, we have around 10 minutes left. Is there anything else? Where did it go?
I think that's in general like good.
Wait, we still have a few minutes though, so if there's anything else, if you want to see anything else run.
Do you have multiple choice questions around this?
Yeah, I do. All right. Adding values. Okay. What will print when the following code executes?
Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 3. B.
Okay. Incorrect. This would be true if it was add 1 comma new integer over here. So.
Oh, oops. Okay, hang on. 1, 2. It's C.
Correct. Exactly. So that line that we were just looking at, add 2 comma new integer 4, we'll put the 4 at index 2, but first move the 3 to index 3. So it'll shift everything down.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right. What about this one? What will print when the following code executes?
A.
A? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So the add 1 comma Sarah will move any current items to the right and then put Sarah at index 1. Awesome. Nice job. All right. Last one. So you can step through the code above. Oh, sorry. That's not the question. But if you want to step through the code, do you have the link to this ebook?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so feel free to go back and you can actually go step by step. Okay, but last multiple choice. What will print when the following code executes?
D.
Nice job. And why D?
Quick question here. Since this is a list, and it's an array list, actually, it can only hold objects. So list1.add4, list1.add 2. There is no new object, or sorry, new integer 2 that makes that 2 from a primitive into an object. So how is that not throwing off an error?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what actually happens, do you remember the name of the term? It's like something boxing.
Deboxing is taken out.
Yeah. I forget the exact name of the term. Autoboxing?
Autoboxing.
Is it autoboxing? Yeah. Okay, so there's something called autoboxing, which is Java will recognize that you're giving it a 2, but also recognize that your needs to be in capital I integer, an object. So what it will do is it'll autobox this primitive type into a big I integer, which essentially means that Java.
So when do we know? Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially means that Java is smart enough to realize that what you mean by this is to actually do new integer 2. So it'll do that behind the scenes, and then everything's fine.
So it is not necessary we include new integer 2 behind everything. Like what we did before, we can. It's not going to harm the code if we don't. But if we can take it out, and it would still work fine. Yeah. Because of the autobox.
Exactly. So if I wanted to do this, it should work the same. Let's see. 4, 5, 6. Visualize execution. So note how here I assumed autoboxing would take care of it, and down here I actually did explicitly state the new integer 7, right?
So yeah, it doesn't matter though.
It should
it's automatically gonna auto-box it, right?
Yep, exactly. We get the same answer. Everything else prints exactly the same. And keep in mind there is auto boxing here, but here there isn't because we explicitly state it. They both work. Yeah.
Even if we state it.
Mhm.
Okay, makes sense.
Cool. Those are really good questions. Let's see what time it is. Okay, yeah. So we didn't talk about getting and setting or removing. We just talked about add mainly, but that's kind of like a decent introduction to lists. The key, which you were quick to point out at the very beginning, is that lists have dynamic sizing, right? And you're able to, what do you call it? You can hold, or not you can, but you have to hold objects in lists.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Any other questions you have before we close out?
As of now, no. So other than getters and setters and removers, that's pretty much all of arrays we need to know, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's just make sure. I think you need to know both add methods and sorry. One more. No, I forget. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's right though. If you just look back, oh, there's also the size method, and size just returns. It's just like length, dot length.
Yeah.
So
probably the same for array, list, and array.
it does the same function, but with arrays you would call array dot length, and that's like information you know about your array. Whereas with array lists or any kind of list, the size method is a real method. So you'd have to call list.size with parentheses, and that will return the size of your list. So both of them give you the same information, but with arrays, it's like array.length, no parentheses, because it's just info that the computer knows about the array. Whereas with array lists, with lists in general, you have to do array.size with parentheses, because that's the method you're calling on the object.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You're welcome. So we'll have a webinar tomorrow at 8 p.m. I think. So if you have questions about arrays or array lists or want to do more multiple choice, feel free to come to that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. Night.
Bye.